Bertram Thomas was the desert explorer that nobody has ever really heard about. Through his service, first of all in the First World War and later in the diplomatic service in the Middle East, he came to, basically, just in short, to fall in love with the desert in Arabia.
Thomas was operating at a time when Lawrence was operating in further north in Arabia, Philby. Everyone was trying to steal the crown and be the first person to cross the largest sand desert on earth, which Thomas did in 1930.
I think he was, at heart, I think he was a great romantic. I think really he sort of fell in love with the great empty spaces.
Through expeditions such as these, it helps to raise awareness not only at a local scale but an international scale. And I think it helps to make people realize at the local level how important and unique Oman's ecosystems and Oman's biodiversity and landscape are.
The role that people like Mark have is basically to shine a light and to inspire and to show that there is a different perspective, which is so different, so fresh, so dramatic, that it really stays in people's minds.
You know, to be around a campfire with these guys and with, you know, inspirational people, whether it be the camel guide, whether it be local dignitaries, local celebrities, Mark, Anna and the Omani guys, yeah, it'll be just a joy really, where you're not having to necessarily, wonder what time we're going to get up. We're going to be woken up probably by prayer time, we're going to be woken up by the sun, we're going to sleep out under the stars.
You know, young people born today are the first generation to be born with the knowledge and the tools to leave the world in a better place than they found it.
So this isn't the first time that I've followed in Bertram Thomas's footsteps. I think it's 8 years ago now, with two Omanis, Muhammad al-Zajali and Amr al-Wahibi, that we retraced his huge 53-day journey from that city Salalah, southern Oman, all the way north to Doha in Qatar, across the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. And it's impossible not to feel connected to the individual around whom your journey is based.
In 1925, Bertram Thomas, a young British political officer, was appointed as financial advisor to His Majesty Taimur al-Said, the Sultan of Oman. Thomas was to become a groundbreaking explorer who added much to our understanding of the Arabian Peninsula. In the 1920s, the world was fascinated by Arabia, thanks in part to T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia, and his book, The 7 Pillars of Wisdom, published in 1926. In the Omani capital, Muscat, Thomas worked through the heat of summer, saving up his leave to travel widely in the cooler winter months, using his fluent Arabic. On many of these journeys, he was the first Westerner to travel in what was then unmapped territory.
You know, you do end up reading as much as you possibly can about that person. I've visited his home where he was born and where he died, and actually there's a little plaque. This home is in a place called Pill, a little village just near Bristol. The local history society have put a little plaque by the side of the door saying that you know, someone who was once made the front page of every newspaper in the world was born and died in this house. And that led me to search for his grave in the local graveyard, which was again reflected the individual. Absolutely no pomp and fuss, you know, a very, very regular small grave, but it was still fairly legible. Bertram Sidney Thomas, desert explorer, OBE. So, you know, very connected in that respect. And that led me to find his only living descendant, who, his granddaughter, who lives in Moffat in southern Scotland. And we get on very well. She's a lovely lady, Jane. And Jane showed me the beautiful medals that she had, those incredible medals that Thomas was awarded. So it's very, very, it's very easy to feel connected.
On all his journeys, he was making notes of the people that he encountered. He was collecting specimens of the fauna and flora and making scientific notes about that. He took scientific instruments wherever he went. He recorded his position by the night sky. My name is Jo Wolfe. I'm writer in residence at the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, and in a way, he was treating every single journey that he made as a scientific exploration. So, in a sense, that coastal journey that he made, like all the other journeys, he treated it as a real proper expedition. Although there was really just one of him, and he would have had guides with him. But I know that on all his expeditions, the information that he was gathering was of profound significance to all kinds of scientists. And speaking from the point of view of the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, it was of very great interest geographically, because all of the places that Thomas visited or crossed, he was crossing places that had not been mapped before. I mean, you're talking about, this was an era, the 1930s. This was like the sort of almost the end of an era where there were still great blank spaces on the map. And one of Thomas's quotes that I particularly love is that he says the blank map itself was a provocation. So in other words, for him, there was the challenge just embodied in the sense that nobody knew what was on the map, and he was going to be the one that went and gathered that information. So he was gathering information about what species, biologically, ecologically, what species could inhabit the desert and in what numbers. He was bringing back, species of plants and animals, specimens that were, some of them, new to science. He was taking measurements, for example, of hills and sand dunes that he was encountering, and he was just noticing every kind of feature of the landscape. He had these characteristics of being very modest, self-effacing, understated, but that was exactly the kind of person who was going to survive in that kind of environment, because you did need to be adaptable and resilient and very sensitive to the people that you encountered, and very observant and open-minded, and he had all those qualities.
Located on the shores of the Indian Ocean on the southeast corner of Arabia, Oman is blessed with a rich natural and cultural heritage. It has thousands of kilometres of coastline, mountains that rise up to 10,000 feet, and a rich biodiversity. Globally important as a breeding ground for turtles and migratory birds, it is also home to the only non-migratory population of humpback whales, as well as the elusive Arabian leopard. Each summer, moist monsoon winds turn southern Oman into a green oasis bursting with life.
Well, when I looked at Thomas's route of 1928 on the map, what I spotted straight away was that it connected not all, but a lot of Oman's biodiversity hotspots, and it gave us the opportunity to tell stories through the podcasts and Anna Maria's still photography and her video clips. And, some of the headline stopping off points really on that route. I mean, where we start is these huge numbers of turtles of several different species nest on the beaches of Oman. So, straight away we're going to be overloaded with stories to share really of turtles. We will then be visiting one of Oman's oldest and most famous tourist camps, which is deep in the desert, called the Sharqiya Sands, the Wahiba Sands as used to be, and it's run by the daughter of an Omani friend of mine who passed away many years ago, sadly. But this camp creates employment opportunities for people in the Bedouin community, whether musicians or dancers. It's really important. So, great opportunity to put the spotlight and talk about sustainable tourism and the challenges of running a camp in the desert so successfully. We'll continue south. We come across an area called the Bar al Hikman, which is a Ramsar recognised protected area because it's globally important for migrating birds. I think over 400,000 birds use this as a refueling station when they're on migration north and south each year. Close to the Bar al Hikman is one of Oman's, a little island called Mahout Island, and there we'll be trying to find a local boat handler to take us out to Mahout Island, because there you find the largest expanse of mangroves in Oman, and mangroves is a huge effort to replant and replenish the mangrove forests that were once a little bit more widespread along the coast of Oman. So there's a particular species of bird called the collared kingfisher, I think, that lives in the mangroves of Mahout Island. So we'll be going out to Mahout. Moving south from there, we come across this coastal community that's developing into an industrial centre called Dukum, and there's a challenge really, because this is the main channel of humpback whales, yet you're going to have increased boat traffic. And again, there's great stories of innovation evolving there in terms of how that can be minimised, that interface between modern industrial development and preserving this population of whales. We then have the story of the Arabian oryx at Yaluni that was reintroduced into Oman in the 1960s. This incredible technology of cleaning the water that is used in the oil fields by filtering it through green reeds, the Phragmites reed, and what was set up initially as a water filtration process. So you imagine green reed beds the size of several football pitches. How that might look to a migrating bird, and clearly those reed beds are full of aphids and little beetles. So a huge McDonald's restaurant in the desert for migrating birds. We then move on to the mountainous area of southern Oman as we approach Salalah, and then we're into the country of the Arabian leopard. It's but 44 to 58 leopards remain, and it's the stronghold of this incredible animal. And the reason they're there is because of the monsoon. This particular area of Oman turns green for several months a year, and the biodiversity there is at its richest. Thomas called his book Arabia Felix, Arabia the bountiful, the abundant, the beautiful, and that was really based on what he saw in Salalah and Dhofar, this southern region. We have there a really innovative story that we want to try and capture about raptor restaurants. Raptors are birds of prey. Many years ago, when I first went to Oman, the best bird watching site was the rubbish dump, because everything was dumped there, including the offal and the waste from supermarkets and places like that, from farms. And of course, the migrating eagles by the hundreds would congregate around this rubbish dump, and vultures. It was quite extraordinary. But obviously, Oman has moved with the times. Legislation and health and safety means that those rubbish dumps now are sealed pretty quickly after being filled. But what Oman has chosen to do, which is really innovative, is to separate the offal, the sort of edible waste, the animal byproducts, from the main landfill, and put that into a fenced-off area where the migrating birds can still feed, but without being disturbed by trucks and people. So there's a great story to tell there, and I think the final story of many, and these are just the headline ones, is the story of frankincense, and some efforts supported and endorsed by UNESCO to preserve not just frankincense, but also the skill of harvesting frankincense. There was a time when frankincense was more precious than gold, and the camel trains going across the desert were, hundreds of animals strong, carrying that frankincense to the markets of Alexandria and Damascus further north. The only thing I'm slightly uncomfortable of on our Jewel of Arabia expedition is that we're taking petrol vehicles as support vehicles. Wilfred Thesiger in the 1940s described the internal combustion engine as the thing that would kill the Bedouin people because their lives would irrevocably change thereafter. And he was right, but the Bedouin had no problem with shifting from camels to Toyota Land Rovers and pickups and air conditioning. But I am very conscious that we're on the cusp of one day being able to use electric vehicles or vehicles using biomass technology. There is the opportunity in Oman now, due to a real innovator, to use some biofuels mixed in with the diesel. So it's coming, but so I am very conscious of the fact that our own expeditions can open us to criticism, really, and I guess that same argument connects to putting the spotlight on a particular place in the hope that it will encourage people to visit. And my philosophy there is really based on Attenborough's comment, in that the more people feel for somewhere, the more likely they are to want to protect it and preserve it. And, that for me is a driver behind what we're doing.
My name is Ras al Hadd. I'm the Executive Director of the Environment Society of Oman and a National Geographic Explorer. Through expeditions such as these, it helps to raise awareness not only at a local scale, but an international scale. And I think it helps to make people realize at the local level how important and unique Oman's ecosystems and Oman's biodiversity and landscape are in the present day, and importantly, historically through time. So through Mark's expedition, he is raising awareness of the historic significance of these landscapes and replicating that in today's world, showing that Oman still remains a very important area that is significant locally as well as internationally. And through such expeditions, it helps to amplify and elevate the amount of awareness. One of the issues that we face actually is not just awareness, but also behavior change. And behavior change takes time, and it's something that we have been working on to improve sustainable practices in Oman amongst the youth, as well as adults, as well as government and industry stakeholders. As a community, generally, we need to improve our sustainability practices and our standards. Continuing to raise awareness on Oman's unique biodiversity helps to bring home the importance of Oman's biodiversity. So I do believe that through Mark's expedition, he is supporting us in raising that awareness and building the support from the wider community.
There is so much more that we can do with this journey as a vehicle to put the spotlight on some incredible innovation, some incredible young people in Oman doing great work, and to connect those to super talented people in the UK also. So we have a huge responsibility, the expedition team, to address and use this journey to address some really fantastic issues. As you saw on the video, Oman is absolutely blessed with a rich natural heritage, but like everywhere in the world, it's under pressure as society develops. It's an extraordinary place, not just for biodiversity, but also for an incredibly rich culture wherever you go. And you only need to go to Oman once to realise what an extraordinary country it is. The main focus of this project is young people, because if we are going to have a sustainable future, then those young people are absolutely critical to engage in the project. Young people born today are the first generation to be born with the knowledge and the tools to leave the world in a better place than they found it. But the danger is that those young people assume that the way the world is today is the way it's always been.
The role that people like Mark have is basically to shine a light and to inspire and to show that there is a different perspective, which is so different, so fresh, so dramatic, that it really stays in people's minds. I'm Joe Owen. I'm an accidental leadership guru have written many books on leadership from many angles, including from the perspective of tribes, as well as adventurers, sports people, special forces, businesses around the world. Well, the first thing is you have to have a big idea. The bigger, the better. So dare to dream, but then you've got to dare to act as well. Once you've got this big idea that you want to change, the first thing you have to do is build your coalition for change. How on earth do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. You talk to everyone. You talk to anyone. You talk to everyone. You talk repeatedly. Okay? You blag conversations. And as you talk to people, you will discover whether your idea is a good idea and a big idea or not. But that is not enough. If you really want to make change happen, what you have to do is you have to put in place 4.5 preconditions for change. So here they are. First of all, you've got to be addressing a real need. So where there's pain, there's opportunity. Pain is good. If there's no pain, people say, oh, that's lovely. You want everyone to be an artist? Oh, lovely. And they're not going to do anything. If, on the other hand, there's a real need, they'll do extraordinary things. So, for instance, if I said to you, well, would you like to spend a night with me in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, you'd probably say no. Well, actually, we're in the RGS, so probably around here everyone go, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. But most normal people would go, no, thank you very much. But of course, just over 100 years ago, there were a lot of very grand, elegant, first-class ladies who were clambering for the opportunity to spend a night in the icy mid-Atlantic because they were on the Titanic. There was a real need. So if there is a need, there is an opportunity. Find the pain. That's the first thing you've got to do. Second, you've got to have a vision of what the future end state is. So if the need is about the valley of despair, then the vision is about the hills of happiness. This is where we're going to get to. The third is you've got to build the credibility and capability for change. Okay. So how do you do that? Because often when you start off with a big idea, it's just yourself and someone else talking over a cup of tea. Well, what credibility have you got? And then finally, you need to get some first steps. You need to get some early wins where you can say, look, we've got this person supporting us, we've got this person, and suddenly people, oh God, it's now serious. So those are the first 4 things: a need, a vision, credibility and capability, and some first steps. The half is a negative, which is, of course, lots of people want to change the world and want to support you and all that kind of good stuff. But they're reluctant to do it for 2 reasons, actually. One, it's a lot of work, so you've got to be prepared to put in the hard yards yourself, but also because of risk. Okay, now, risk is not just rational risk about, it costs too much money, etc. It's personal, it's political, it's emotional, and you've got to be able to manage that as well. So there you are, the 4.5 things you need to put in place for change. If you're really going to make change happen at a system level, you need the support of the system. I mean, that sounds obvious, but if you're simply shouting from the outside at the system is not going to move. So at some point, you have to find a way of engaging with the system so that because this is about power, ultimately, so that people with power and influence go, okay, I now want to do something different and better from the past. And that's part of the magic that Mark brings here, because in his own inimitable way, he is a master at engaging royalty and governments around the world in a way that they find, again, totally non-threatening and engaging. But once they've engaged, that's then opening the door for them to start thinking differently and acting differently.
So starting on January the 6th, 2025, this team of people here, Amar sadly is the only one.
Any expedition is only as good as the team that make it happen. And when I'm putting an expedition together like this, I always try and go for a blend, a mixture. I always, every expedition needs its Frank Wild, its number 2 that Shackleton depended on. I have my Frank Wild in this expedition, and his name's Nigel Harling.
I'm a friend of Mark's from years and years ago. We first went on an expedition together in 1987, and we've been on almost too many expeditions to remember, mainly polar, quite a lot of sea kayaking ones. We held a record for crossing Greenland. We went to the magnetic North Pole, we kayaked around Spitsbergen, and also I did drop in and do various expeditions or as a guest really in Oman. We paddled along the coastline of Oman together for a while, and I have visited him on a number of occasions when he lived in Oman. I'm there to support Mark really on all of that, in every imaginable form that you can think about the word support. So I'm there to make sure he's in the right place at the right time, he's got the right gear, he's able to be fed, we've got fuel, we've got water. And also there's the risk side as well, to make sure that he's safe and he knows who to call if he gets into any issues, twisted ankle or anything else.
Anna Maria Pavlache, this incredible photographer, Anna Maria and I go back many, many years too. She brings a skill set that neither Nigel and I have, which she's much younger than we are, but she's just such a talented photographer, but her ability to work in the digital arena in terms of social media and external communications, which is very important if we want to achieve our aims of sharing this incredible environmental wealth that Oman has. Really critical part of the expedition. But mixed with that, I always like to try and give people who are on an upward course in their life a great opportunity to get something onto their CV that will be really significant in helping them move forward in their life. And Anna Maria was that person 2 or 3 years ago when we went on an expedition across Saudi Arabia. Fantastic project for her to really enhance her CV. And I would say that applies to Dikra and Ibrahim, the 2 young Omanis who I think I appointed many years ago when I was running Outward Bound in Oman. 2 fantastic young Omanis. Again, working in a sector in Oman that is quite niche really, and it's sometimes I'm sure they get questioned as to why do you do the job that you do outdoors all the time, working with groups of young people at Outward Bound Oman, when you could be working in a nice air-conditioned office and have your company car. And they're still working away at Outward Bound 5 or 6 years after they started. They've now trained together. I think when we sat and spoke the other day, a couple of thousand young people have had their lives shaped by Ibrahim and Dikra. And so fantastic that they will bring another skill set to the journey, in that they speak perfect Arabic. Their English is great. They're very comfortable outdoors. They've got critical roles to play in communications to the Arabic audience, but also to inspire and work with the young people as we travel. And to learn skills from people like Nigel and Anna, and to learn how to communicate with the media. They will come back from this journey different people, and that's good. And the 6th and most recent addition to the team is someone who I travelled with 8 years ago when we crossed with Mohammed the empty quarter. We had to have someone with us who understood how to handle camels, and that's where Amar al-Wahibi comes in. Amar is Bedouin, born in the sand, has no idea exactly how old he is because there were no birth certificates around when he was born.
Amar is critical because he's the only one who knows how to find first gear on a camel, which is pretty critical.
Absolutely fantastic, knows the desert like the back of his hand, lives and works with camels all the time.
But the stars of the show will undoubtedly be the camels. Now, you might have seen on the old black and white footage, camels in Thomas's day were working animals. They were tough. They could carry loads of 60 kilos day after day after day. Today, I'm afraid, camels like yours truly have gone a little bit soft, and our camels at the moment are undergoing boot camp in Sharqiya Sands, ready for our arrival on January the 6th.
I think, first of all, it's really important to recreate these journeys, just to reposition the spotlight back on Thomas and his original achievements, because so much of what he did has been forgotten in the passage of time. And I think it's nice and it's important to look back with hindsight and see the amazing things that he achieved just by making these journeys. I mean, he didn't go about trying to do something grand or significant. That wasn't his original object. His original purpose was just curiosity and a wish to find out something new about the landscape that he was passing through. And so for that reason, I think it's lovely to revisit these journeys and to just make, on one level, just to make the journey a kind of tribute to Thomas because of what he did and why he did it. But at the same time, to make this journey in the modern time, it will bring lots of new information in. It will show us how that landscape has changed in the interim. And it will show us how the ecology of these different environments has changed, what has happened to different populations of animals, for example, of plants, what's happened to the communities that Thomas might have met along his way. You know, where have they gone? If they've disappeared, what's happened to them? How have their ways of life changed? And are there any stories? Are there any stories that perhaps Mark can find or from the people that he's encountering? You know, what can he add? What can he make of perhaps the next chapter or the next few chapters in Thomas's story? So in a way, it's a lovely tribute to Thomas, but we're sort of adding another few layers, if you like, onto his story and giving it extra dimensions, bringing it right up to the modern era, and hopefully involving some of the people who live in these places and allowing them to tell their stories as well.
That is the Jewel of Arabia expedition, and you know, the next time you hear from me you'll probably hear the sound of breaking waves and you'll hear the sound of camels, and it'll be early January 2025 when we'll be on day one of the expedition. But between now and then, right now, in fact, you can, whatever platform you use to access your podcasts, you will find the Jewel of Arabia expedition podcasts. We'll be putting social media posts out between now and then, which you will find on our website, which you can visit at www.jewelofarabiaexpedition.com. And please stay connected, join us around the campfire, and I look forward to speaking to you again on day one of our journey on the Jewel of Arabia.